Welcome to the Teaching TaxFlow Business Entity Tax Types and Reporting mini lesson. I'm going to remind you that we do have a separate mini lesson for each type of business entity that dives a little deeper into that specific entity. But we at Teaching TaxFlow understand that there's some confusion as far as when you form an entity, what tax forms actually need to be prepared on a federal level. So we wanted to put this lesson together as a 30,000-foot view with that deep dive into each lesson. So let's dive into our entity tax types and reporting. We've put together a chart for you with some filing guidance. Happy for you to pause this mini lesson and review it if that makes sense. I want to talk through federal tax flow through versus entity recognition as far as who pays tax. We're going to talk about that entity formation process. There are a lot of questions about when a federal identification number is needed and how to obtain that. We're going to talk through state tax considerations and then our calls to action. So let's get started with our main visual aid for this mini lesson is our business entity chart. What you're looking at are the business entities. We've got them arranged here on the left-hand side from basic and complexity all the way down to the most complex. And I want to point out a few different things here from entity type of self-employed. When you're self-employed, whatever business activity you're doing, it could be a business, it could be rental properties, or it could be a farm, which would be Schedule F. Those activities are reported as in a schedule on your personal federal income tax return. It's not a separate tax filing for your business. Now, one misconception is that if you form a single member LLC, then you have additional federal filing requirements. Well, you do not. A single member LLC is actually a disregarded entity for federal tax purposes. So you're going to see on our chart that a disregarded entity simply files the same as someone that's self-employed. The advantage of a single member LLC is that you are picking up some asset protection. Again, we are not attorneys here at Teaching TaxFlow, so we're going to talk about or continuously recommend you talk to some legal counsel about if an LLC makes sense. The next entity type is a partnership. It's basically two or more people coming together to do business. And a partnership by default files a Form 1065, a federal Form 1065. Now, if you have a multi-member LLC, you indeed would also file a federal Form 1065 by default. And the reason I say by default is that a multi-member LLC, as well as a single-member LLC, could actually elect to be taxed as a corporation. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But I just want to point out that this multi-member LLC and partnership file the same federal tax return. The next, S Corporation. S Corporation is a hybrid type of entity that blends some of the attributes of a partnership or multi-member LLC with a C Corporation. An S Corporation is obtained by making a proper S Corporation election. An LLC or a corporation can make that election. And an S Corp also files a Form 1120S. Now, I want to point out that this 1120S form, as well as these 1065 returns, are all due by March 15th. So December 31st, 2022, all those returns are due March 15th, 2023. Of course, you can file an extension. The other thing that I mentioned in the beginning, all of these entity types right here up to S Corp are considered flow-through entities. That means the entity itself on a federal level does not pay tax, but the tax is paid by its owners. So for the single self-employed and single-member LLC, it just goes on your personal return. Partnerships, multi-member LLCs issue you a K-1 as an owner. S Corp also issues you a K-1. And again, dive into those mini lessons for those entities. Most complex entity is a C Corporation. C Corporation is the only entity here that deals with double taxation, and it does file a Form 1120 at the end of the year. Now, the single member LLC, multi-member LLC, S Corp, and C Corp do require a state tax filing, and they do require a registered agent represent the entity. That registered agent can be an owner, a taxpayer, or it could be a third party. Get the question a lot here. When do I need a federal identification number? A federal identification number is the social security number equivalent for an entity. So you might want to pause here, but the IRS has laid out in their on their website here and you file a EIN for an EIN. Some people call it an FEIN, some people call it an EIN, some people just call it a federal ID number, but you file a form SS4 to obtain the EIN number. And if you have employees, operate a business, a corporation or partnership, or multi-member LLC, if you have any of these yeses here, then you would be required to file for an employer identification number, or FEIN, some people call it. All right. What are our calls to action? If you have a business or are looking to start one, review your entity chart and figure out what the tax reporting requirements are. Determine if you need a federal ID number. And if you do choose an entity that requires state tax filing requirements, look at the costs and the tax exposure to make sure that if you are picking up asset protection, those costs and tax exposure are worth it. So we always talk about build your board of directors. So make sure you have good legal counsel, good tax help within the Teaching TaxFlow ecosystem, and be sure to take business entity specific mini lesson. We talked about that. Finally, be sure to take the Not All Income is Taxed the Same mini lesson to determine if your business is tax efficient. All right, a lot of takeaways here. I hope you grabbed some bits and pieces from this mini lesson, and thanks for watching.
John here from Teaching TaxFlow. Wanted to thank you for watching this video. We literally have hundreds of hours of content between podcasts, webinars, videos just like this built specifically for you, the taxpayer. Whether you're a full-time employee, you're a freelancer, you're a contractor in some other sense, or you're thinking about getting into business for yourself. Everything here at Teaching TaxFlow is perfect for you, basically going off of the roadmap provided by the IRS to legally and ethically reduce the taxes paid over your lifetime. So be sure to subscribe to this channel and connect with Teaching TaxFlow, and we will see everybody very soon.